A stress hormone actively restores myelin sheaths after brain injury in new findings that reframe its role. This is Planetterrian Daily, episode 153. Corticotropin-releasing hormone promotes repair of damaged myelin sheaths following injury. The work identifies an active repair function rather than a purely stress-related signal. Researchers tracked myelin recovery in models where CRH signaling was present versus blocked. The mechanism involves direct support for oligodendrocyte activity that rebuilds insulation around axons. Follow-up experiments will test whether modulating CRH pathways improves outcomes in demyelinating conditions. The identification of CRH as an active driver of myelin repair after injury adds a concrete mechanism to the broader story of brain resilience. This work sits within ongoing efforts to understand how existing neural circuits respond to damage rather than relying solely on cell replacement. It moves the field closer to interventions that could enhance natural repair processes in demyelinating conditions. Attentive listeners should watch for follow-up studies that test CRH pathway modulation in human tissue models or early clinical settings. Now, shifting to a very different area of research. Scientists mapped a neural switch that influences body weight through previously unrecognized pathways. The work clarifies how specific brain regions integrate signals that affect energy balance. Experiments isolated the circuit's contributions separate from known hypothalamic centers. Findings open new angles on why some weight loss interventions succeed or fail. Human imaging studies are planned to test translation of the circuit's role. On a different note, when dietary fiber runs low, intestinal bacteria shift to breaking down proteins in the protective mucus layer. Experiments showed that adequate fiber suppresses this shift, while certain plant proteins increase production of beneficial metabolites. The findings clarify how diet shapes microbial behavior at the gut barrier. Reduced mucus integrity has been linked to inflammation in prior work. Human dietary trials will test whether targeted fiber increases protect barrier function. Most people picture gut bacteria as quiet passengers that simply break down the fiber we eat. In reality, when fiber runs low, these microbes turn to the mucus layer that lines the intestine and protects underlying tissue. Right now, as you digest your last meal, microbial enzymes are deciding whether to stay within the dietary carbohydrates or begin harvesting proteins from that mucus shield. Studies show the shift can occur within days of reduced fiber intake, and the change alters both barrier thickness and the metabolites microbes release. One memorable figure: the average adult gut contains roughly 200 grams of mucus that turns over every few hours under normal conditions. Maintaining adequate fiber intake keeps bacteria from eroding this layer and supports production of compounds that reinforce the barrier. Watch future dietary trials that measure mucus integrity directly in people, rather than relying only on stool markers. From daily gut barrier maintenance to longer-term patterns of physical function across populations. Data from older adults in England show poorer individuals exhibit reduced physical performance up to 15 years earlier than wealthier peers of the same age. The difference persisted after statistical adjustment for chronic illness, body weight, smoking, and alcohol use. Researchers analyzed objective measures of grip strength, walking speed, and balance across income brackets. The pattern points to cumulative environmental and behavioral factors beyond diagnosed disease. Policy discussions on healthy aging are expected to incorporate these gradients, from population-level aging patterns to a narrower veterinary health angle with climate implications. Miscarriages in dairy cows waste the feed, land, and water already invested in gestation while releasing greenhouse gases with no milk output. The analysis shows that preventing these losses through better animal health directly lowers the sector's overall emissions footprint. Researchers quantified the embedded resources lost per event and modeled the cumulative climate impact across herds. The work highlights veterinary interventions as a measurable lever for emission reductions. Next steps include testing scalable health protocols on commercial farms, from animal health to an unexpected cardiac observation in humans. A UCSF trial measured premature ventricular contractions after cannabis use and recorded a reduction rather than an increase. The finding runs counter to prior concerns about arrhythmia risk and suggests possible relevance to atrial fibrillation pathways. Participants inhaled cannabis under controlled conditions while cardiac monitoring captured changes in beat patterns. The study size and design allow direct comparison to baseline rhythm data. Researchers plan larger trials focused on patients with existing atrial fibrillation. Researchers also examined dependence on complex data sources and algorithms whose internal logic remains opaque to users. A survey across multiple fields found limited ability to verify outputs or trace decision pathways. The pattern raises questions about reproducibility when core methods sit inside black box systems. Authors call for greater transparency requirements in published work that uses such tools. Journals and funders are expected to respond with updated guidelines. In veterinary applications, topical application of clove oil reduced mite burden in dogs with sarcoptic mange faster than some conventional approaches in early tests. The plant-derived treatment targets Sarcoptes scabiei while lowering risks of secondary bacterial infection. Researchers documented lesion healing and mite clearance timelines across treated animals. The approach offers a potential alternative where resistance or side effects limit existing options. Further controlled trials will compare efficacy and safety margins. A large-scale genetic analysis challenges the long-standing explanation that haplodiploidy alone drove the evolution of eusociality in ants, bees, and wasps. The study compared relatedness patterns across thousands of species and found genetics insufficient to account for colony organization. Researchers instead point to other insect-specific traits such as nest-building behaviors and parental care systems. The revised view shifts emphasis toward ecological and developmental factors. Additional comparative studies across Hymenoptera are underway. Unexpected events trigger immediate pupil dilation accompanied by distinct brainwave changes that mark a transition to a new processing mode. The response resets how incoming information is weighted and learned. Experiments presented participants with sequences containing rare, surprising stimuli while recording eye and scalp signals. The pattern appears within milliseconds and influences subsequent memory formation. Researchers will examine whether the same signature appears during real-world decision tasks. Analysis of the full Reddit archive shows platform-wide increases in negative language, with older communities and longer threads exhibiting steeper declines. The trend holds after controlling for topic shifts. Researchers quantified sentiment scores across millions of posts and comments spanning more than a decade. The pattern suggests structural features of threaded discussion may amplify negativity. Platform designers are examining moderation tools that might alter the trajectory. A new laser architecture replaces repeating photonic crystal patterns with quasi-periodic arrangements to achieve greater tunability. The buried dielectric platform demonstrated stable single-mode operation across a wider range of conditions than conventional designs. Tests in the lab of Kent Choquette at the University of Illinois confirmed reduced sensitivity to fabrication variations. The approach targets defense and aerospace applications that require reliable wavelength control. Further scaling work will assess power output and thermal stability. Researchers converted low-purity local iron ore into high-quality iron sulfide, suitable for electronic devices. The process avoids energy-intensive purification steps required for conventional semiconductor materials. University of Minnesota experiments confirmed the resulting pyrite meets electrical performance thresholds for thin film applications. The method offers a lower-cost route to components used in sensors and photovoltaics. Pilot production trials are planned to evaluate consistency at larger volumes. Modeling of the first 8 months of vaccine rollout in a Washington county estimated more than 16,000 hospitalizations and 4,000 deaths averted. The analysis incorporated local case and vaccination data to isolate the intervention's contribution. Results align with national estimates but provide county-level resolution on direct impact. Public health officials used the figures to guide ongoing booster campaigns. Updated models will incorporate later variants and waning immunity parameters. A common preservation chemical shows statistical association with increased suicide deaths, especially among younger people and men in UK data. Researchers note the scale may be undercounted and urge tighter access controls plus monitoring of online information. The study examined temporal and geographic patterns linking exposure opportunities to outcome rates. toxicology and epidemiology teams are now examining dose-response relationships. Regulatory bodies have been asked to review current usage limits. Here's what you may have missed across the past week. New data on targeting pre-diabetes remission for type 2 diabetes prevention. Work showing protein intake limits can extend lifespan in models, and a large analysis finding that waist-to-hip ratio captures cardiovascular risks BMI misses. Those threads continue to develop alongside ongoing questions about scientific progress metrics and earlier protective gene claims in Alzheimer's research. Before we go, keep an eye on larger trials testing cannabis effects in patients with existing rhythm disorders. That's Planetterrian Daily for today. If you enjoyed this, a rating or review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify really helps new listeners find the show. I'm Patrick in Vancouver. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you tomorrow. And if you'd rather watch than listen, find us on YouTube at NARA Network. Links in the show notes. This show comes to you from the NARA Network. If you want another sharp daily briefing, Offshore North has you covered. Offshore ocean racing explained every Monday with a Canadian angle. All our shows are free at naranetwork.com. And on the website, every episode's visuals live in our free image gallery at naranetwork.com gallery. Royalty-free under Creative Commons. Download with attribution. This episode used AI voice synthesis of my voice. Editorial selection and analysis are my own.